Dust rolled across the Oregon outpost in 1869, thick enough to sting the eyes and scrape the throat. The air carried the sharp bite of pine sap, mixed with old tobacco, a harsh scent that settled heavy on the skin. On a makeshift stage of crooked crates, a young woman stood with a rough burlap sack pulled tight over her face. Her hands were bound, her stance steady, but her breathing came fast and uneven. Her name was Clara Wren. Men crowded around the platform, shouting insults and filthy guesses about the stranger hidden beneath the sack. Their voices fed on one another, rising like a storm, boots grinding into the dirt as if they meant to claim her before the auction even began. Then a tall figure stepped forward. Caleb Hol, a lumberjack known more for his strength than his words, pushed through the crowd. His coat hung loose across his broad shoulders, and a black hat cast a deep shadow over his face. Years of swinging an axe through frozen timber had hardened the muscles in his hands. $2, Caleb said, his voice low and solid. The auctioneer hesitated. You ain't even seen her face, mister. I'm buying a woman, not a face, Caleb replied. Each word landed steady and final. Silence crawled across the yard. Even the wind seemed to pause. Beneath the sack, Clara lifted her chin. Something in Caleb's voice tugged at an old memory she thought long buried. When she whispered her own name to confirm the sale, the sound drifted across the outpost like a quiet echo. Caleb stiffened. He knew that voice. Once, deep in a winter storm, a woman had kept him alive with a gentle hum and careful hands. He had never forgotten her. But she had vanished, or so he believed. Without another word, Caleb untied the rope at Clara's wrists and guided her away from the stage. Cruel laughter faded behind them as they walked into the woods, boots pressing into crushed pine needles and shells thick as smoke. The rope around her hands now hung loose, more symbolic than restraining, but her steps stayed cautious. The burlap sack was tied lightly at her neck, letting her see just enough to walk. Its frayed edge fluttered in the shifting wind, offering quick glimpses of her chin and jawline, never more. The forest swallowed them, softening every sound. Towering pines whispered overhead as the trail wound deeper. Clara's dress was worn thin, not meant for this land, yet her steps remained sure. Caleb kept his eyes on the path, jaw tight with thoughts he could name. When his small log cabin came into view, built against a rocky rise, Clara paused. A rusty horseshoe hung above the door, a quiet hope for luck. Inside, Caleb stepped away from her, giving her space. No one is placing you now, he said quietly. You stand where you choose. Clara moved to the far wall, fingers brushing the wooden floor before she knelt, back protected, posture weary. The sack still covered her face, but her fear radiated like heat from a fire. Caleb did touch her. He did question her. He went to the stove, set a pot of water to heat, and let warmth fill the room. I always make enough for two, he said, not looking at her. Used to be for my wife. After she passed, I kept the habit. Clara lifted the edge of the sack just enough to see the wooden bowl he placed nearby. Her movements were careful, practiced, shaped by too many days spent expecting harm. She ate slowly, as if tasting trust itself. Caleb kept his eyes on the fire, wrestling with memories that cut too deep. The snowbound cave. The night death circled him like wolves. The voice that kept him awake, steady and calm. Clara's voice carried that same quiet strength. Could it really be her? He did ask. He could. When she finished eating, Clara tightened the sack again. Her hands shook only slightly. You don know me, she said. Caleb turned, resting his elbows on his knees as firelight flickered across his face. Don, need to. Not yet. Her breath hitched. A wall rose between them, built from old fear and unsaid memories. Caleb stepped outside into the cold night, letting the sharp air steady him. Above, the sky burned with stars, bright and unforgiving. Inside the cabin, Clara sat alone, fingers gripping the edge of the sack like a shield. She did know if Caleb Hol was a safe man or a dangerous one. All she knew was he had spent $2 to claim a woman with no past and no promises, and all Caleb knew was that he had brought a stranger into his home whose voice stirred ghosts he thought he had buried. Spring crept gently through the Oregon pines, softening the air and filling the forest with new life. Clara moved with quiet purpose now, staying close to the cabin, learning the land's patterns. The sack remained tied loosely at her neck, letting her see the ground as she worked. Its frayed edges shifted with each turn of her head, hiding most of her face, but giving her freedom to move. Day by day, she and Caleb fell into an unspoken rhythm. She mended shirts with steady hands, stitching torn cloth with careful precision. Small scars marked her fingers, signs of a life she never spoke of. Caleb worked beside her, axe rising and falling with controlled power, each strike echoing through the clearing like a heartbeat. Still, tension lingered. Caleb felt it whenever Clara moved close enough that he could hear her breathe. He tried to bury it beneath old promises. His wife, his memory still lived in these walls. A vow made long ago tied him to grief he once ready to release. Yet Clara's presence warmed the cold corners of the cabin in ways he could ignore. One evening, dark clouds gathered over the treetops, bruised and heavy with the promise of a storm. Caleb went looking for Clara near the river. He found her kneeling at the bank, filling a bucket. She loosened the sack just enough to see the rim, humming softly as she worked. The sound froze him in place. It was the same tune from years ago, drifting through a frozen cave, the same melody that had kept him alive when death pressed close. Gentle, steady, unforgettable, she turned slowly, sensing him. "You all right?" she asked, tightening the sack. Caleb swallowed hard. "Where'd you learn that song?" She hesitated. "A long time ago," she said quietly. Thunder rolled before he could ask more. Clara reached for the bucket, her hands trembling. Caleb stepped closer, ready to help, when a sharp crack echoed through the woods. Not thunder. A branch snapping. Too close. Too deliberate. "Clara," he said softly, "we are not alone." She froze, breath quickening beneath the burlap. Hoofbeats followed, slow and heavy. A rider emerged from the trees. Jasper Kane. His long duster hung in tatters, eyes cold and calculating, known across the region as a bounty hunter who never lost his quarry. His gaze fixed on Clara. "Evening," Jasper said smoothly. "Heard you took yourself a new wife." Caleb stepped in front of her. "That is none of your business." Jasper smirked. "Oh, it might be. Word is there. It's a woman on the run." Clara's hand brushed Caleb's arm, trembling. That touch told him everything. Jasper knew exactly who she was. "What do you want?" Caleb growled. "Conversation," Jasper said, "and maybe a bounty." The wind stirred pine needles across the ground. Clara lowered her head, drawing the sack closer. Jasper leaned forward. "Might stop by again. Done like loose ends." He turned and vanished into the trees. They hurried back to the cabin. Caleb barred the door and checked every window twice. The air inside pressed heavy with questions. "You need to tell me what he's chasing you for," Caleb said. Clara gripped the sack tight. "I killed a man," she said, "in Missouri. He attacked me. I fought back. They hunted me, so I ran." "You are not a murderer," Caleb said. A heavy thud slammed into the door. Caleb grabbed his rifle. "Stay behind me." The door burst open. Jasper stepped inside, pistol raised. "Time's up." "Hand her over." "No," Caleb said. Gunfire erupted. Wood splintered. A bullet tore across Caleb's arm. Clara rushed to him, tearing fabric to stop the bleeding. Jasper advanced. Clara swung a fire iron, knocking him off balance. Caleb tackled him. They fought hard, rolling across the floor. Clara grabbed the rifle, hands shaking. "Stop." Jasper laughed. "Ask her about the man she killed," he spat. "He was my brother." Silence fell. "I did know," Clara whispered. "I only fought to live." Jasper reached for his pistol. Caleb drove his knife through Jasper's sleeve, pinning his arm. Enough. He bound Jasper and dragged him outside until dawn. By morning, Caleb rode Jasper into town. Whispers spread fast. Piece by piece, the truth surfaced. A cook named Eleanor Tate stepped forward, her voice steady. She had seen the attack. Clara had fought for her life. The sheriff lifted the warrant. Clara was free. When Caleb returned, Clara stood outside the cabin, the burlap sack folded in her hands. She had stitched small purple flowers along the edge, turning fear into something her own. "You don't have to hide anymore," Caleb said. She lowered the sack. For the first time he saw her face fully. A scar crossed her cheek, not shameful but earned. Her eyes were strong, grateful. "I thought I lost everything," she said. "You gave me a place to stand again." "You saved me once," Caleb replied softly. "Maybe we were meant to find each other again." They married beneath the pines, the forest holding its breath. Her veil was made from the old burlap sack, stitched with hope. Together, they planted a pine seedling beside the cabin, its roots sinking deep. As the sun dipped low, Clara slid her hand into Caleb. Their scars met, their past finally at peace.